So, when communicating with your youth, you need to set it up for success from the beginning, and not just for you or your youth, but for both of you together. Following a few easy steps can make the process easier for both of you and help open up the line of communication between you. So, how do you talk to your youth? We're going to talk about a process called secure. And securing a safe space and a helpful conversation will definitely help you and your youth have a more constructive conversation and a better outcome. So, first, we're going to go over each of the letters of secure and what they stand for, and then we'll go into depth on what each of these concepts mean. So, first, the S in secure is to start safe. Next, the E in secure stands for establishing goals. And we're going to get more into what that entails in a minute. C is going to be creating a partnership. U is use questions. And then with the R, you're going to recognize them. And finally, with the E, you're going to empathize with and accept your youth. So, the first concept we're going to talk about is the start safe, the S. So, you're going to find a safe physical space where you both feel comfortable talking openly. And when you do this, you want to also make sure that the child knows that the conversation is safe, that you're not going to judge or punish your child for anything that's said during the conversation, and that you're listening and allowing your child to speak freely about their experience. So the E is establishing goals. Before you even start the conversation, have a goal in mind that this conversation is meant to be positive and aimed at strengthening the connection between you and your child. You want to make sure that you have that mindset and your child has that mindset. Creating a partnership is one of the most important things you can do with your child. You need to let them know that you're in this together and you need to be in that together. Acknowledge that you may not be the expert on gender identity or sexual identity, but you do want to talk, explore, and learn with your child. And if your child is questioning their gender or sexual identity, ask who else is aware and whether or not you can share this information with anybody else. And make sure you're not outing your child to anyone because that can hurt them and cause a rift in your relationship with them. Use questions. When you might have trouble trying to think of how to respond to what your child is saying, ask them questions to help you understand more. It's okay to not have all the answers, and your child's going to want to know that you're trying. And that's going to mean a lot more to them than if you just act like you understand when you really don't. One of the things that you can do is, I hear you say, repeat back to them what they said. Can you tell me more about that? Do you feel like being a boy or girl fits you better? How do you feel about your body? Are you comfortable in it? It's okay to admit that you might have questions in the future, but reassure them that you're trying to learn. Because when you're trying to learn, it makes them feel like they are loved and accepted for who they are, even if you don't quite understand who they are at the moment. At least you're trying, and that means more to them than you know. Recognizing your child may sound like a small thing, but it's actually very huge to them. When your child reveals something that's personal and vulnerable, make sure that you recognize that and thank them for sharing. In continued conversation, your child might want to try using a different name or pronouns than what you're used to, and that's okay. Um, Give it a try, see if that language makes them feel more recognized as who they are. Acknowledge their courage and strength on being honest and true to who they are, and make sure that if they decide that those pronouns and the different name is something that they want to have permanently, that you recognize that and you use those, because that makes a huge difference in your relationship with your child, and that makes a big difference in their life as well as yours. Empathize and accept. So frequently express your acceptance of who your child tells you they are. It's very, very important. Frequently express your acceptance. And remind your child that you love them and you are there to support them. Support is a huge, huge, huge factor in youth mental health. Your support is a huge factor in youth mental health. Even if you do not understand what is going on with your youth, at least support enough to try. 5 ways to communicate about identity. Have the conversation regardless of whether or not your youth has come out as LGBTQIA+. Be ready to speak and listen without judgment. Very important. Talk about universal values. Focus on simple concepts and address and denounce discrimination. Let's dive into the first one. Have the conversation regardless of whether or not your child has come out to you as LGBTQIA+. You're sending a very, very important signal by being open to the conversation. If you think that there's a possibility that your child might be, and you do not have this conversation, you're not showing the acceptance before they have the chance to come out to you. And because your child might turn out to be LGBTQIA+, but the other thing that you can do if they're not is help reduce and eliminate anti-LGBT prejudice by making the topic one that's easy to talk about. One important thing that's really hard for us as parents to do is to be ready to speak and listen without judgment. If your youth thinks that they're LGBTQIA+, they may bring up a related subject to test your level of acceptance. By seeing your openness to the conversation, they'll feel a greater level of safety and security, or not. Your level of comfort and the language you use with your youth can reinforce or diffuse negative and potentially dangerous stereotypes of LGBTQ people. So make sure that if your child brings up any LGBTQIA plus subjects, that you are open-minded and you listen to them and you speak without judgment no matter what, because they may be testing you based on your level of acceptance, because they're trying to see if they came out to you how you would react. One way to talk about LGBTQ values without talking about LGBTQ values, if that's something you're not comfortable with, is to talk about universal values. So if you feel out of your depth talking about LGBTQ values and issues, try focusing on universal ones. Be able to um, be who you are fully, no matter who you are. That's a universal issue. That is not just an LGBTQ issue. And love is love. That's not just an LGBTQ thing. That is a universal thing. Love is love. And if you express it that way, you're not really looking at an LGBTQ value. You're looking at a universal value. So, if you don't feel comfortable explaining or talking about LGBTQ issues as LGBTQ issues, try to look at them as a bigger picture of universal values if it makes you feel more comfortable talking about them to your youth. Focus on simple concepts. For instance, if you're discussing what it means to be transgender, for example, you can start with the saying that a book cannot be judged by its cover. You might not correctly guess someone's gender identity just by looking at them, and some people might appear one way but feel differently inside. And that's something that can be explained in a simple concept instead of getting deep into an LGBTQ issue that might be uncomfortable for you to explain. An uncomfortable conversation to have is discrimination, but unfortunately, I feel like it's a very important conversation to address and denounce discrimination. Conversations about LGBTQIA identity with children shouldn't avoid political reality or the broader history of homophobic and transphobic laws and policies. In fact, it should be a huge part of your conversation with your youth. And no matter how you feel about people, there should always be an expectation that we should publicly behave with respect towards each other. We shouldn't let our private views reflect on how we treat people when we're in public. So, a parental resource that I found that I think would be a very great resource for parents out there when they're looking for how to communicate with their youth is a guide for how to be LGBTQ plus parents. So not only does this resource have resources about teaching your children tolerance, love, and acceptance in the world where they're being taught hate, but it also gives you insight about why your child doesn't fit in, what you can do about it, how to make your kid feel safe and supported when coming out of the closet, do's and don'ts when it comes to LGBTQ plus parenting, how to best educate yourself on LGBTQ plus issues. Um, and then you will find out if your child really is that different, how to deal with the difficult topics like bullying and loneliness, and how to support your child in difficult conversations, which is very, very, very important. And think that all of these issues are very important for you to learn about as a parent, and it will help your child with mental health issues in the future. Every parent in the world right now has an incredibly important job to do, and that job is to validate every single child and show them that there is love and care and connection for them, no matter who they are or who they love. So go out there and be that parent to those children who need that love and support, and build them up. Don't tear them down. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you were able to get something out of this video and apply it to the relationship that you have with your child to improve your communication. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I hope you all have a wonderful day.